I'm an addict and my name is Rick. I'd like to thank the convention committee for inviting me to come here and share my experience, strength, and hopes with you all. I'd also like to thank the God of my understanding, because without him, I wouldn't be here either. I feel like I'm on television or something, all these bright lights shining on me. I hope I don't have a suntan before the night's over. When I came to the fellowship, a little more than 10 years ago, I wasn't certain who I was or what was going to happen to me, or I wasn't sure of anything. I saw a lot of strange people who I didn't know, and I was brought there by some strange people who told me just sit down and everything was going to be all right. It was very difficult at that time for me to conceive that everything was going to be all right, because I was unsure of a lot of things. I like to think that God came to me in a very special way and gave me his grace and his mercy. He gave me an opportunity to live. That opportunity that he gave me has been burdening me ever since and has brought me to this podium tonight. I come to you with all my hopes and dreams, and I bring you love. I come to you. All my life I searched for something rare, a love that I could share. There were many endless days that turned into years, and they were lonely years. There were times when my faith in life was dim, but I still lingered on. I knew that I would find a way. And all of a sudden that way came to me, and that way is the NA way in which I am living today. All my hopes and dreams through working the 12 steps of NA have been unfolding for me each and every day. And all of these things have been made possible through the grace of God. When I came around, they told me you have to get on your knees and pray. Now, maybe you may not want to get on your knees. Maybe you like to stand on your head. Whatever your preference is, when we come into the fellowship, a lot of times people do tell us that we should learn to pray immediately. My faith in life was dim, and I thank God that there was some faith left in me to bring me to where I'm at today. I like to go in to tell you a little bit how I got involved in the NA fellowship. The NA message was carried to me by Doreen. And she told me, she said that she had just the kind of meeting that I needed to be at and she gave me a card and told me to meet her at a certain address in Washington. When I went to that meeting that night, I knew that I had found where I needed to be. That search that I had searched for all my life, it ended there. There were a lot of loving people there that took me in their arms and they hugged me and they kissed me. And they gave me the reassurance there too that it was going to be all right. I was very interested in the fellowship. I started asking a lot of questions. And somebody told me, hey, slow down, you're moving too fast. Somebody gave me a number, and they told me to call this man up in California by the name of Jimmy K. And he told me exactly what we needed to do to spread the message of NA in Washington, D.C. When I came around, there were only 3 meetings in Washington, and today we have well over 200 meetings. My first convention, Carmelita and I went down to Miami, and we had the happy experience to meet a lot of wonderful people there in Miami. We met Leah and a lot of other wonderful people there. I got a burning desire in that convention to do more. And when I went home, I began to do more. I began to call Jimmy up, and I began to ask Jimmy a whole lot more questions. Doreen and I spent countless hours on the phone with Jimmy talking about fellowship. It took 6 months in those days for us to get literature. And Jimmy said, the best thing I can tell you to do, since you all are beginning to grow so fast, is to Xerox the literature you have and pass it out. I thank God today that I'm not in the Xeroxing business, because I don't think I could keep the demand of literature that we need in Washington, D.C. Meetings began to grow. And I began to get a lot of feedback from people. And I began to get somewhat discouraged. And it was then that I began to realize that everyone that came to meetings and everyone in the fellowship was not about the business of recovery. My sponsor told me that that was all right, as long as I knew what I was all about, and as long as I knew what I was supposed to do. Jimmy told me the most important thing was to make certain that I preserved the unity of the fellowship. And that's what I intended to do. And I set out to preserve the unity of the fellowship. I thank God that He gave me that opportunity to grow. There were many times when I felt alone, because a lot of people were scared at what I was doing, because it looked like every week I was opening up a different meeting somewhere. And Carmelita came to me one day and she said, slow down, you're going too fast, you're going too fast. And that night I was kind of discouraged, I say, am I going too fast or what? So I called Jimmy, and Jimmy said, you run as fast as you can. And I had a sponsor who really gave me hell, who really did not take any mess from me. And I recall, it was near Christmas time, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the middle of a conference, and I was in the And I went to see him, and it was really one of those days when I really did a no-no the night before. And he said, "Where were you last night?" I said, "I went to a Christmas party." He said, "Oh, you went to a Christmas party? What meeting did you go to?" I said, "I didn't go to a meeting." He said, "How could you give yourself permission to miss a meeting?" And I felt kind of funny because, I wasn't supposed to really give myself permission to do anything. He told me, he said, "Buddy, you better learn the difference of whether you're running for your life or running for your supper." He said, "Picture over here, you have a hill, and on top of this hill is a fox. And he said, everyone knows that the slickest, slyest, slimiest thing in the forest is a fox. And at the bottom of that hill is a poor, meek, humble little rabbit. And the fox, as slick and sly as he is, cannot understand why, after all day of chasing this poor, meek, and little humble rabbit through the forest, he has not been able to catch it. And he's up on that hill, he's going, and my sponsor told me, he said, it's very simple. The fox was running for his supper, and the rabbit was running for his life. And from then on, I made a decision that that's the way it was going to be for me every day. It was going to be me running for my life. And I made a decision on that day not to let anyone stand in my way. And I was like a tank. I was going to knock anything down that stood in my way. There was something that I always believed in. I always believed that there's going to come a time in our life when a man like myself is going to have to stand up for what he believes is right, and he's going to have to stand alone. And a lot of nights and days I stood alone because of what I believed and for what I was trying to do in trying to help the fellowship in Washington grow. And that brings me back to my commitment that I made in step one. And I believe that we all need to make a commitment. A commitment first that I'm going to stay clean. More than anything else, if I don't make that commitment and renew that commitment on a daily basis, there's an opportunity that I may set myself up to be jackpotted. I surrendered. And when I surrendered, it wasn't easy because no one likes to give up. And one of the hardest things in our lives, as I see it, is for one to give up their life and turn their will and their life over to someone else. They told me you have to have someone to do your thinking. And that's when a sponsor came in. How many people in here have a sponsor? Truth and honesty, how many don't have a sponsor? Well, a sponsor, if you don't know what it is a person that helps you to represent your life. He helps guide you along in the program, and he helps you to grow. There's an orange pamphlet that's passed out at the meetings. If you haven't gotten one, please pick it up. It's a very valuable piece of information that could help you to save your life. When I came around, I had a problem with step two. And in talking about step two, the thing that always bothered me was the word insanity. It was at the end of the word, at the end of the step. And I couldn't imagine how could someone like me, as good looking as I was, as intelligent as I was, how I could be insane. And my sponsor told me, he said, just you thinking that you're not insane, you're insane. Take a look at your behavior. And that's one of the things that I have to take a look at on a daily basis. And I use step 2 a lot. And with the people I sponsor today, I always have to remind them about step 2. And I like that part in step 2 in the basic text that tells us the definition of insanity is making the same mistake and expecting different results. And I'm sure a lot of you in here could identify with that 100%. Even after being in the fellowship, as long as I've been in the fellowship, I have to check my inventory daily, sometimes hourly, and sometimes every minute. At one time, I thought I was well. And recently, you know, some people around Washington have been accusing me of being well. Well, I'm far from being well. I think I'll be well when I close my eyes and take my last breath, and I'll say, well done, and that's the well that I'll be. Getting into service, I feel, is essential for each and every one of us. It's more than just going to meetings. I found that out. It's putting yourself there. It's picking up ashtrays. It's picking up coffee cups. It's making coffee. It's cleaning up. It's being available to go on 12-step calls. I never forget, I was in the program 3 weeks, and I went on a 12-step call. And my sponsor told me, he said, you just keep your mouth shut, and you don't say anything. And he said, you watch everything that we do, and then maybe one day you'll be able to say something. I had a very strict sponsor. He told me that I couldn't even talk in the meetings. He told me when you go to a meeting, you sit down and you keep your mouth shut. And after I was there for about 6 months, he told me you can speak now. But he said, before you speak, you have to ask me, can you speak? He said, you smoke too much. He said, you drank 21 cups of coffee in a whole hour and a half. He said, you got up too many times during the meeting. He told me I had to practice some discipline. And he told me that was a part of me being about service. Because he said it was me being about service, because he said every time I did something or got up, I was annoying somebody. He told me, get a cup of coffee at the beginning of the meeting, at the secretary's report, and don't worry about any at the end of the meeting. One of the hardest things, like I said, and I have to say it again, is for us to turn our will and our life over to someone else. Especially to somebody we don't know, another human being, and ask them to give us the help that we need. My sponsor had me setting up for the meetings. He had me cleaning up. He had me washing ashtrays and wiping them out after each meeting. It was rough. But you know, I really believe within my heart that the way I came through is the best way. Because it was just something there that I just don't feel sometimes today. Because I see a lot of people that don't want to work the steps. I see a lot of people that come in here and they think if they just sit, it's going to come to them like you pick up a can of Lysol and just spray. And it really doesn't work that way. This program, as I see it, it's a daily job. And it's not an 8-hour job. It's a 24-hour day job that I have to work. And as I approached all the steps, I saw how difficult it was going to be sometimes, especially when I would get to step 10, especially when I had to admit when I was wrong. Promptly admit it. And I was a person that was never wrong. I was always right. But today, in learning and continuing to work this program, I can promptly admit when I'm wrong. I thank God for that 10th step. I thank him that he gave me that safety release valve in my life. Because a lot of times, if it wasn't for step 10, I would blow my top. A lot of times I had to learn how to put my hands in my pocket because they told me, you don't sock anybody in the fellowship. And there's been times, I tell you, I've wanted to sock some people. And I know some people that have gotten socked. But I found out in Narcotics Anonymous, there's no place for that type of service. And if we can't keep our hands to ourselves, we need to chop them off. Service. I was in service up until about January this year. It got real rough for me. I won't begin to really tell you what happened, why I got out of service. But early in this year, 1987, you know, I just reached a point where, hey, I had to step back, and I really had to do something for myself. I had reached a point where I was just about worn out, because it looked like every time something would Ric. You know, I'm associate pastor at this church. And instead of the people calling the church St. Luke's, they were calling it St. Ric's. And really there was nothing saintly about me. But in January this year, I decided I need to step aside for a while. And I needed to take a good look at myself. And it was then that I decided I need to do another 4th and 5th step. In this program, I have learned that when we have a problem or a situation, we can always find a solution to that problem or situation within the 12 steps. So in January, I decided I was going to write my 4th step. And I went and I sought guidance from my sponsor. And I told them what I needed to do and what I felt I wanted to do. And they gave me the okay to go on and do what I needed to do for myself. And after I took my little vacation and wasn't about service, you know, people began to think I was well because I wasn't doing any service. But there's going to come a time when we have to realize exactly what we need to do. There's going to come a time when we're going to have to see how we're going to have to back off from the regular meetings we go into and go to some different meetings to hear some different things, see some different people, and learn some different ideas on how we can approach the steps. And I personally don't care to go to any kind of meeting but a step meeting. And I personally feel that the meetings are not the place to dump. If you have a problem or a situation, oh, you like that, huh? You agree with that? How many agree with that? I don't like to hear dumping in a meeting. I don't like to hear about sex in a meeting. If you got a problem with sex, go to Sexaholics Anonymous. We have problems with drugs, so we in Narcotics Anonymous. For me, I don't mind telling anybody how I feel. And a lot of times I have to learn how to tell people with love and compassion and not come directly out and hurt their feelings, because I know a lot of people are like me with those tissue paper thin feelings. I learned in service that it was important for me to put the people that I sponsor in service. And some people, as soon as I got them, after about 30 days, I would begin to put them in some type of service. And a lot of people tell me, you know, well, hey, I don't think you should put that person in service this soon in the fellowship. Give them a chance to grow and do a little bit. But I learned that in working with the people I sponsor, that it's important for me to know them and learn to know them, and somehow to figure out through the grace of God what is really good for them. We don't have a whole lot of people in Washington with a lot of clean time. I'm sponsoring about 46 people. I have a full load. I had to take a look at that and see what was the best way for me to approach that. So every Wednesday evening at 6:30, the people I sponsor, myself, we sit down and we have our family meeting. We talk about what goes on with us. We talk about the steps. And we also write the steps in the meeting. It gives us that opportunity to get to know each other, to get to be able to share with each other at that personal level. And I've seen a lot of people grow as well as myself through that part of service. In taking a look at step 3, it gave me an opportunity to renew my commitment to God as I understood Him. Now, for the newcomers and for you people who may not understand what this program is all about, you may hear God, you may hear higher power. This is not a religious program. This is a program of spirituality. And it consists of the 12 spiritual steps and the 12 spiritual traditions, which are tools for us to grow. In making that decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood Him, it wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. That faith that I had in step 1, that faith that helped bring me to the fellowship, began to burn within me and begin to dart about my body like sparks through stubble. I really appreciate the value of what step 3 has to offer to me. On a daily basis, I make certain decisions of what I'm going to need to do for myself. And I also keep in mind that either I'm going to grow or I'm going to go. And the people that were thinking that I was well after about being in the program 10 years, there were many times when you just didn't know how I was trying to grow, how difficult it is, how people expect so much of you, how people try to drain you. And I have to remind myself on a daily basis, again, too, that everybody is not about the business of recovering. I have to keep in mind that my most important thing is for me to recover. My most important thing is for me to carry the message to the person who still suffers. My most important thing is for me to be there for someone, because when I came, there was someone for me. And a lot of times, you know, when we come in here, we get comfortable with ourselves and we forget that there was someone there for us. We come in, we warm a seat. We take all that good information you hear in the meetings. And I mean, some people really do give some good information. You go to the coffee pot and you drink. You drink your coffee. You take the literature. And then when a basket passes, it passes right by you. And the person that comes to meetings, as I see like that, is a person that's shoplifting. I made a decision that I was not going to shoplift. How do you expect for the coffee to be paid for? How do you expect for the literature to be bought? And our 7 tradition says we are self-supporting through our own contributions. And these were decisions that I had to be concerned about as to what I was going to do. It wasn't important for me to sit around in the room and watch who was not putting anything in the basket. I tell you, one night, I was sitting next to somebody in the meeting, and a basket passed, and they didn't put anything in it, and later on we went out to eat, and when the bill came, they paid $100. They took the $100 bill. I say, wow. I took the inventory silently. My sponsor told me to take people's inventory silently and learn from it. All I can do is to save myself. I can help to carry the message, but I can't carry anybody else. Could you imagine somebody trying to pick me up? I mean, this is a heavy load here. And believe it or not, lately I've gotten to the point where even it's become a heavy load for myself. And it tells me that, hey, it's time for you to do something about this heavy load. Because if you don't do something for this heavy load, you're not going to be any good for anybody else. And I still want to be every day fully human and fully alive in the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous. I heard somebody the other night say, in a meeting that they had turned their mother over. They had a disagreement with their mother. My sponsor told me that the only thing I could turn over was my will and my life. And a lot of times I got to remember that. Because a lot of times when, we get upset, we might say, oh, I'll turn that over. I'll turn her over. Now, how could I turn you over, Leah? The only thing that I can turn over is my will and my life. And in keeping that conscious contact with God as I understand Him on a daily basis, I'm able to learn how to continue to turn my will and my life over to Him as I understand Him. In looking at step 4, I got scared. Every time I think about doing another full step, I get scared. Because every time I begin to learn a little bit more about myself, and in sponsoring people, all I can do is suggest that you work the steps. The way it was given to me is they told me, write your first 3 steps in preparation to doing your 4th step, and then go on to do your 4th step. In dealing with people and approaching their 4th step, the same thing that I see, fear, is the same feeling that they have. I find it difficult for myself, this is my personal opinion, that if you've been around the program 3 years and not have done your 4th step, then you're really procrastinating. I believe that this is an ongoing program and we have to work it daily. And I think that after about 3 years, if I haven't worked my 4th step, I really think I would be kind of stale. Recently, I had several people that I sponsor to go back out. And of course, as usual, some of the people that are not about the business of recovery say, well, that's your fault that this one's getting high. That's your fault. Well, I really could not take the responsibility for anyone getting high. But my sponsor told me to make sure that I be there for those individuals so if they decide they want to come back, that I would be there with loving arms. It puzzles me why a lot of people get disgusted with people when they get high. And about a month or so ago, 4 people in the fellowship were sitting in my house visiting, and a young man that belonged to our family that has gone back out came in to visit. And all of a sudden, all of those people got up and they left. And he told me, he said, am I that bad that they all got up and they left? We have to do what we have to do for ourselves, but it goes back to what I said before. There was someone there for me when I came, And I have an obligation to be there for someone when they come back or when they come in for the first time. Step 4 for me is turning my heart, soul, mind, and body inside and out. After having worked step 4 and gone on to step 5, and admitting to God, to myself, and to another human being the exact nature of our own, I was able to begin to feel like I was somebody again. Once again, I was in touch with that search. Once again, I was in touch with seeking a balance in my life. On a daily basis, it's important for me to seek and to continue to keep my life balanced. I've learned through working the 12 steps of this program that I can achieve a balance in my life. I like what the fellowship has done for me. It only made one promise: the freedom from active addiction. That's a beautiful promise. To be a slave to nothing, to be a slave to no one. Freedom. I'm free today. For so long, we were locked up in cages. For so long, we lived in rooms and holes. And today we can come out and we can fly around without even being high. We can fly around and have a good and wonderful time. We can be fully human and fully alive in this fellowship. Freedom. On our medallions that we give away at anniversaries, that's one of the words they have on there: freedom. That gives me a good feeling to know that I can go anywhere today without a mood changer. It gives me a good feeling that I can get on an airplane and know exactly where I'm going today and not wonder how I got on that plane, what I'm doing on that plane, or anything else that I wondered when I found myself on airplanes not knowing where I was going. Freedom. I found that freedom. I found that freedom in every spiritual awakening that I had as I approached these steps. And believe me, I felt every spiritual awakening that I had as I approached each step and did each step and continue to do each step, because it's a feeling that I've never had before. And it goes back to my opening statement when I said, I search for that something rare, that freedom. I get criticized a lot for what I believe in. I get criticized a lot for what I do. And if I was to ever lose heart, it would be a sad thing. But I realized that knowing people like Bob from San Francisco, when I could pick up the phone and call him, when I can pick up the phone and call New Orleans and talk to Ron, or if I want to pick up the phone and call Gene in Joplin. It's a good feeling to know that we can sometimes pick up the phone and make a contact with a long-distance sponsor. Sometimes it just gives me a thrill of hearing a voice of somebody that I haven't heard in a long time. And last week I got a call from a guy in Portland, Oregon, and he said he had heard a tape where I spoke in Jackson, Mississippi. And he said he liked that tape. And he said he heard I was speaking here and he wanted to know if there was going to be a tape. And I told him I really didn't know. I see that it is being taped, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to send that brother one. In taking a look at the first 5 steps, I could have gone on all the way to 12, but I wanted to at least touch on the first 5 steps as I see them, as I feel them, and as I live them. And during all the steps in that spiritual awakening, and keeping that balance in my life, and having people to work with and sponsor, all of this gives me a real charge of living. And in keeping with my balance, I'm able to take the bitter with the sweet, the success with the failure, the joy with the sorrow, and the fulfillment with the disappointment. With those 8 words, I use those 8 words on a daily basis, along with the 12 steps of this fellowship, to help me to continue to grow and be a better person, and to continue to save my life. I'd like to thank all of you all for being here. I hope that you all will have a fruitful convention in this Crescent City. And I hope that you all will return home safely and continue to carry the message to those who are not able to be here. Thank you, and God bless you.